Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Markets at a Glance series. My name is Rufas Kamau, Markets Analyst at FX Pesa. So today we'll be looking at the New York Open, trying to understand what are the prevailing trends in the markets, what has been happening in the markets over the last 2 days, and what to expect going forward. So once you join in, kindly say hi, and this will confirm that everything is working just fine. All right, so let's get things started. I think it's important that we start with what looks like the chart of the day. And once we go through that, then we can identify other potential charts. So in my opinion, I think Euro JPY seems like a very interesting chart to me. Having seen this oscillation that looks more of a sideways momentum, where the market has been oscillating between an extreme price level of 159.735 and a bottom of 155.727. So a lot of price action has happened in between, and the most recent price action has been a 3-week rally that brought us all the way up to the resistance level. And from then, all we are seeing is the price moving back downwards. So since morning, price attempted to go up, but then we saw the Japanese yen strengthening, and this has led to a big price drop from this resistance at 159.735. And I expect some further downside momentum to be happening from this. So I don't think this one is too far gone. So there's a good likelihood that this reversal may continue for the rest of the day and perhaps further into tomorrow. So besides that, we'll also be looking to understand what's currently happening with the dollar index. So yesterday was completely bearish with a slight bullish momentum for the dollar index. This was during the Asian session. And once the price got to this level, there was a big drop all the way to the support level, a level that we last saw here in the 12th of October. So upon reaching this area, you can see in the early morning trading, the dollar index attempted weakening before finding strength and recovering, and we are almost erasing yesterday's losses. So this basically implies that the dollar is currently pretty strong and there's more room for upside. So there is a high likelihood we could be seeing the dollar index trend higher and eventually get to the upper trend line. And this is a price level of around 106. So we are basically talking about 106 let's say around 278. So I expect the dollar index to continue driving higher. And with a very strong dollar index, then it means some major moves to be happening in the majors. So one of them being pound USD, which had broken this particular trend line here, managed to make a good rally upwards. But then since the beginning of the London session, all we have seen is the pound continuing to weaken against the dollar, and there's more room for downside. We could also be seeing the pound USD erasing yesterday's gains and dropping all the way to yesterday's open. So as for USD JPY, we had analyzed this early in the morning during the market snapshot series. This was at 11 a.m. So we had this sequence of movements here before the market broke towards the lower side on yesterday. So we tested the area and kept going down before finding support around this area here. So this was a price level of around 149.317, which also happened to be a resistance here and here before becoming a support. So upon finding a support here, we had a pin bar formation, the green candlestick with a small body and a long tail towards the lower side. So later on, we had a second consecutive pin bar before the market rallied higher. So now we expect that the USD JPY has broken the 149.698 price level and is now headed to for the previous high, which is basically 149.992 or rather 150. So expect the dollar to continue strengthening against the yen, and this could read the trend all the way back to 149.992 or rather 150 price level. So as for the Euro USD, which is the major currency pair, we saw a very strong acceleration yesterday. Price eventually got to our major resistance level. As you can see, this was previously acting as support and now turned into a resistance level. And eventually, when the market got there, there was a very strong rejection and the price has kept going downwards. So we have already hit our first target of 1.06160, and now there's still more room for further downside. And this basically implies price probably moving towards yesterday's open, or basically reversing exactly what happened yesterday. So there's that possibility that we'll be seeing some further downside in Euro USD as long as we continue seeing a much stronger dollar. So as for USD CAD, there was this double top formation, but then after the market pulled back downwards, we are seeing this acceleration continuing, and there's still a good chance we could be seeing a triple top formation here once the market breaks this psychological level of 1.37102. So as for gold, this is what we are seeing. We were monitoring this on the 15-minute chart. The market was trading in this triangle. Eventually, there was a break. So the break is something we were monitoring early in the morning today. And then when this happened, you can see what followed. So the market followed up with a big sell-off that was about 1743 points, or basically 174 pips. So after this, we are seeing this form of reversal happening. And now the market is at the critical juncture, basically retesting a previous low, which now may be turned as resistance. So the key idea here is that as long as the market remains within this area, we don't know what might play out. However, observing the price action might give you an idea. So if there's a clean break of this particular level and the market keeps going up, then the idea is that the market goes back to the breaking point and gets to this price level here. However, if this doesn't happen, then the beginning of another leg could be shaping up, and we could be seeing the market going back to test the day's low as the dollar continues strengthening against other currencies, as well as gold in this case. So there's a good likelihood that there will be a signal generated within the next couple of minutes once the New Yorkers join the markets. So as for AUD/USD, we saw a pretty strong bounce from this major support level yesterday, and now the market has been continuing moving in that direction. But now, over the last couple of hours, what we're witnessing is basically the dollar being pretty strong against other currencies. So now the dollar continuation of strength could now start challenging the Australian dollar, and we could be seeing some form of pullback as we approach the end of the day. So as for US equity indices, a very strong bounce yesterday, followed by today's price action, which basically shows some sideways momentum or some form of sideways movement. So in this case, we just wait and see to see what direction the price might take. And once we understand that, then it will be easy to identify a potential trading opportunity. So key thing to do is to just plot this on the 15-minute chart. And once you plot this, then you wait for the eventual break, whether it's on the upside or the downside. So a clean break towards the lower side would mean we go for short selling positions. And of course, if there's a break towards the upper side, then we identify potential long positions. So on the other hand, if you look at the US 500 or the NASDAQ, there was a big jump from this bottom here, market pullback, and is now headed higher. So there seems to be some form of optimism, but then the same idea seems to be playing out here. So in this case, we are seeing the market following this path here. And of course, on the lower side, you can see that nothing much is happening here. So I expect some form of breakout above or below this trend line. And this would shape the trades for the day. And then for the UK oil, we saw the market finding some really nice support here. We were wrong. The price was expected to bounce strongly from here yesterday. So price broke the trend line and traded lower. And today, I expect some form of continuation for this. So sometimes you might see the price, let's say, retesting the breaking point. But then, since this is not happening, then the idea is to look for the previous support levels. And now there's a good chance we could be seeing Brent oil trading lower and eventually getting to $87.477 per barrel. So as for the Dow, we were expecting some further downside momentum. So as you can see, the sharp drop yesterday pulled back and continuation down. And then today we are seeing this price acceleration. Then it basically implies that there's a high likelihood that we could be seeing a price break either of these two trend lines. So one of them being on the upper side, and of course, on the lower side, we also have this price action area here. So trying to plot this yet. So this is the support level. So we observe whether the market breaks this area here or whether it immediately reverses and gets to the lower trend line. And then we watch out for the break, which represents our potential trading opportunity. So we could be seeing some good opportunities coming in from this, especially if the market was to gain some form of momentum as we approach the New York session. And that should be in the next in the next 19 minutes. So European equity indices have eventually broken up to the upper side. So we all know what happens here. So if you're monitoring a consolidation, in this case, like the rising wedge here, and the market eventually breaks out to the upper side, then there's a high likelihood that the price will keep trending higher. So we could be seeing the French equity index or the France 40 index keep trading higher and potentially get to this level on the upper side. And this is around 6946.38. So for the European or Euro cash index, we identified this inverted head and shoulder pattern. So after identifying the inverted head and shoulder pattern, and this was early in the morning today, you can notice that the market eventually broke the neckline, pulled back to retest the trend line, and now it basically represents a potential opportunity where the market could now head for a rally. So a rally could be happening from this point onwards, and some of the key areas to target includes previous lows as well as previous highs. So on a very short term note is 4071. Of course, a pretty decent target would be around this area here, which was acting as the resistance. And this is 4109 for the Euro 50 cash index. So as for the UK 100, we are seeing this consolidation zone basically serving as a range, an area where the market is unable to break or even form higher highs or higher lows. So from this area here, we can say that there's a potential that the market could either break towards the upper side or break towards the lower side. So it's one of those charts where you have to wait and see up until something happens. So from this area here, I would say this is the price action levels. And if I remove the highlight, then now it makes more sense to look for a potential break, especially if the market was to break downwards in continuation with the prevailing trend of bearish momentum. So as we continue, if you have any questions, feel free to type those questions in the Q&A section, in the comment section, and I'll be ready to respond as we progress. So hello, Haki. I can see Gas Boys, Black Savage, and Haki. Please repeat on Euro JPY. I think I already covered that. So sometimes all you have to do is to go back. Remember, these sessions are live. So the chart of the day is Euro JPY. After 1, 2, 3 consecutive weeks of bullish momentum, the pair has finally hit a resistance level of at 159.735. And then in the last 8 hours, we have seen a very strong bearish momentum. So this basically means that there's a very strong entry by sellers, and there's a high likelihood that this bearish momentum will continue. So judging by what we are seeing here, I think this is our support line following this path here. And if this plays out as expected, then we could be seeing some further downside happening in the Euro JPY currency pair. So there is that likelihood that the market could go back to this area here. So notice how it was acting as a resistance. So in this case, there's a good likelihood that the price could continue dropping and eventually get to 158.270 price level. So as for the Japanese stock market index, it was largely bearish early in the morning, but now we are seeing some form of strength coming back in the markets, and this trend is very much welcome. So from here, what we are seeing is a market in a formation in what looks like a loudspeaker, and now we are seeing some very strong support happening on the daily. So on the 4-hour chart, this is how it looks like, and of course on the 1-hour chart, this is how it looks like. So there is a good likelihood we could be seeing the price reversing from this point onwards. But then if you're using a smaller time frame, say the 15 minutes chart, then you'll notice that this area is currently serving as a very strong resistance point. So if the market was to break this area and trade higher, then you go for long positions. And of course, if it was unable to do this and shows some strong bearish momentum, then it would basically imply going for shorter selling positions, perhaps even targeting the low of the day. So now that you've covered that, there's also the German index, which has been pretty strong despite German manufacturing being really weak. So now we are in this position where we could safely assume that the German stock market index has faced a major resistance level, and we could be seeing some form of pullback happening from these levels. So the last time that we saw the market reading this high was first on the 19th of November last year, actually 2 years ago, this 2021. Then we have the 5th of January last year, and then we have this area here. I believe this is the 18th of May this year. Now the market is retesting the same level again. So in this case, some further break upwards would mean some acceleration of price higher. But then if price gets just back down and below this level, then we will know for sure that there's a high likelihood of the price reversing direction and starting moving downwards. So as for USD CHF, we identified this reversal point happening at this support, an area that has been unable to break for the last 3 days. So from Thursday, Friday, and then Monday this week, market was unable to break this support. And then on Tuesday, it attempts to go back down, buyers come in and push the prices back up. So in this case, there's still more room for upside. I expect the market to continue pushing in that direction. So in this case, if I was to map this area, then it seems like there's a coincidence with the previous high that we saw yesterday. So there's still more room for upside for USD CHF, meaning that the Swiss franc could continue losing to the dollar as the dollar continues with its rampage today. So on the economic calendar front, we don't have much remaining for the day. So majority of the data, especially from the S&P Global Manufacturing as well as Services PMI, has already been released, starting with Australia, where we saw neutral consumer confidence. And of course, when you look at flash manufacturing, came in slower than expected. So Australian flash services also came in lower than expected at 47.6. And of course, when you move on to Japan, you can see that manufacturing in Japan is also weakening. So then we look at French flash manufacturing at 42.6, German flash manufacturing at 40.7, a slight improvement, but still significantly below the trend line or below the expectations. Then the last one will be released by the US. So for the Eurozone, we saw manufacturing PMI at 43.0, way lower than expected. And of course, flash services also missing expectations. So what this basically means is that the global economy is slowing down. Europe is slowing down, the UK, Canada, and so on. Australia too. So if we see a much weaker economic performance data from the US, then expect some form of fireworks. Of course, expect some form of volatility coming in US dollar pairs. So in this case, if the final manufacturing PMI, which comes up at 4:45 p.m., and of course, flash services PMI, which comes at the same time, if they both come in weak, then in that case, it would indicate a weakening economy, which tends to be negative for US equity indices. Of course, for anyone who is reasoning, it's already 420, so happy 420. So let's progress further. So as we approach the end of the day, we'll be having more data in the morning before we get to the market snapshot series, which will be presented by Norbert Kiza from Kampala. So a lot will have happened by the time the session happens at 11 a.m. So there will be inflation data coming from Australia, where we expect inflation to have spiked to 5.3% from the previous reading of 5.2%. If the number is 5.3% or higher, then it will likely be bullish for the Australian dollar. Then German IFO Business Climate Survey. And of course, the announcement of the interest rate decision by the Bank of Canada, which will be happening at 5 p.m. tomorrow. So later on, after the announcement of the rate decision, there will be what we call the Bank of Canada press conference, which will be released at 6 p.m. Then we look at two more speeches from major central banks. One is Bank of Canada, ECB President Christine Lagarde will be issuing a speech at 8 p.m. And then we also get to see the Fed chair speaking at 11:35 p.m. So that's what we're expecting in the calendar. And besides this, I don't think there's much or any more developments in the markets. So when you look at the geopolitical sector, yes, the state of Israel is continuing to basically send even more missiles into Gaza, and this is worrying the international community. So what is about oil being interrupted? Very bullish news for the oil market. But then the most recent development today is that the US is lifting sanctions on Venezuela, which is a country that is very rich with oil reserves. This basically means that if the US removes sanctions on Venezuela, and Venezuela is able to sell its oil to the US and its allies, then this would solve a large gap of the US oil supply and basically lead to lower oil prices. So the current news on what the US is doing with Venezuela seems to be the key driving sector of the oil markets today. So that's it for the day. We'll be checking to see if there's any questions that I may have missed. And once I go through them, I hope to see you guys on the next one. So hi, Methodius Nyambani, Gas Boys TV, happy 420, thank you. All right, guys. So also a reminder, tomorrow we'll be having another session. It will be happening at exactly 11 a.m. It will be hosted by one of our partners, Norbert Kiza from Kampala. So make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel so that you can get notified whenever you have a live session going on. And of course, besides these, we'll be releasing a new episode of the Bullish Banter podcast later on our platforms, all our social media platforms. So once you listen in to the podcast, make sure to share your responses, share this podcast with other traders in the markets, and hopefully everyone gets to benefit. So remember, these sessions are purely educational. They are not intended to offer any financial advice in any way. And of course, you must do your own research, do your own due diligence, and practice proper risk management at all times. So thank you guys, and I hope to see you on the next one.